If you've paid any attention to the productivity space in the past 10 years, there's no doubt that you've heard the name Cal Newport. He is one of the most prolific and the most well-respected authors in the space right now. And his book, Deep Work, is something that fundamentally transformed how I approach my work. So because he's one of my favorite authors, I decided he would be next in the series of I Read Every. So in this video today, I want to talk about every single book that Cal Newport has written, and I want to give you my opinion of which one you should start with if you're new to his work. Let's go. So I'm going to go through these in the order in which he wrote them, not necessarily the order in which I read them. So his very first book was called How to Win at College. My favorite quote from this book was, "If you cannot maintain an organized room, you will never truly feel that your life is organized." And that kind of harkens back to the whole Admiral McRaven make your bed thing, which I absolutely love. But this book was really not for me. It was Cal's first book. His voice in it was just not good. He hadn't found his voice as a writer yet. He was still trying to kind of be this like very funny and kind of jokey author, and it's just not his style. The humor doesn't hit for me. And overall, the whole thing with college, one, this book feels a little bit dated now because it came out quite a while ago. But two, I just, as someone who doesn't approve of college at all, I went to 3 semesters of college and dropped out and was like, screw this, I'm done. And has basically no expectation of my children going to college. This was just not a book that I was very interested in. So I read it. It was fine. If you are interested and you want to succeed at college, it's still a helpful read, although some of the things are very dated. But a lot of what he has to talk about is just really good study and life habits anyways. So this one was fine. Next up, we had How to Become a Straight A Student. This was his follow-up book to How to Win at College, specifically focused on study skills and how to get good grades and how to learn things well. This one was a little bit more interesting to me. My favorite quote from this one was, he said, "Solid editing requires only 3 careful passes: the adjustment argument pass, the out loud pass, and the sanity pass." And I really love that because I use the out loud pass all the time for stuff that I'm writing. It's amazing how when you try to read what you wrote out loud, stuff sticks out to you and you're like, oh, wow. Ooh, gross. That's not good. And so overall, I enjoyed this one more because it was more applicable as far as just study habits and learning stuff goes. And overall, this was kind of right at the tip of the time when we really started learning how we learn well, right? And kind of started moving away from just the rote memorization and just the highlighting and just the whatever. So there's still some really helpful techniques for learning in here. It's definitely, again, not one of my favorites, not one that I'm like, oh, you should go and read. If you want a really great book on learning, you should read Make It Stick. This book talks about a lot of the same things, but just it's more updated and it's just a better book at this point. Cal was still not super great. It was fine. Not great. After that, we had How to Be a High School Superstar. Again, this was one that didn't super interest me. I read it mostly for the purposes of making this video, but it's my favorite of his initial 3. So of these 3 how-to ones, this is by far the best one, but it's really just because he starts to bring in all the stuff that makes his next book so amazing. And so if you're just going to look at one, this is not the one to pick up, right? Unless you're just specifically like, oh, I have a high school senior and I really want to figure out how to, get those college admissions things going. All of his later books are better talking about the same topics. But this one was the first book that I felt like he kind of started to hit his stride and he started to get how he wants to write and how he is gifted to write. And you really kind of start to see his voice and hear his voice in this. And this one is just right on that edge of like, okay, wasn't for me, wasn't written to me. I don't really care about it. It's not something that I care about for my kids, but I can start to see like, yeah, this is the Cal that I know. I like this. So my favorite quote from that one was, he said, "The secret to relaxed superstar success is straightforward. These students are genuinely interesting people who did genuinely interesting things." And I love that concept. The main core of this book is, instead of trying to do a bunch of stuff that looks good and that looks cool and that looks, like impressive, just go do something that makes you actually impressive. Like, go do something impressive instead of just trying to do a bunch of things that look impressive, right? And so it really kind of hit to the core of a lot of what I care about. I've always said, I don't care what it looks like, I care what it is, right? So I don't care if somebody thinks that I'm not smart. I care if I actually am smart or not, right? And so that's kind of the whole core of this one. So that one was decent. Again, not one that I'm like, oh, you should go out and get it, it's amazing. It was fine. Next up, we had So Good They Can't Ignore You. This is where we kind of start to get into like what I would consider the real Cal Newport, right? This was not his first really big success. All of the previous ones were a little bit more niche, kind of for those student books. This one was kind of right in between, where where it started to gain some popularity, but not really until Deep Work came out. And then a bunch of people who read Deep Work went back to this one. But this one is really good. And again, it's like right at the tip of the spear of, man, he's really starting to hone his message. The idea with this one, my favorite quote from it was he said, "You need to get good in order to get good things in your working life. And the craftsman mind is focused on achieving exactly this goal." The whole point of this was like, don't just pursue whatever you want. Don't just be like, I'm just following my passion over here today and over here tomorrow and over here this way. He's like, find something and then actually get good at it. And it just built on that idea from the How to Be a High School Superstar, which is be a genuinely interesting person who has done something genuinely interesting. And you can't become that without having focused and spent the time to actually gain it. That's not something that just comes overnight. It's not something that just anybody can do, which is why not just anybody has it, right? So the whole message of that book is just this: go and actually put in the work to be good at something good, right? So this one is definitely one that I'm like, I liked it. It's still, as far as his voice and as far as his ability to communicate, there's a lot of people that had problems with this one of feeling like he kind of contradicted himself, of like, don't follow your passion, but follow something passionately until you get really good at it, but you're following it because you were passionate about it, but don't follow your passion. And so there's still a little bit where it's this one can be right on the edge of like, I feel like you're contradicting yourself kind of throughout it. But again, it's kind of like the beginning of the real Cal Newport stuff and really what this guy has to say. So definitely a good one. And then we get into the Mac Daddy. Next, we have Deep Work. This is the book that this book came out, and I just remember it just taking the world by storm. Like everybody that I listened to and everybody that I followed was talking about this book. And it's a very distinctive cover, and I just saw the cover everywhere. I felt like in 2016, I think is when this came out. And it was everywhere. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody's like, this is so amazing. I love it. And I'm like, okay, I'll reserve judgment. We'll see. And I go and get it and I read it and I'm like, this book is literally going to change everything in my life, right? The idea behind Deep Work is that we've now come to this point in the world where the ability to focus is a superpower. We have all lost so much of our ability to focus and just degraded our attention span so greatly that the ability to just sit down and do focused work for any amount of time makes you stand out and look like a freaking god amongst men, right? It's absolutely insane. One of my favorite quotes from it was he said, you don't need a rarefied job, you need a rarefied approach to your job. And that's really what this whole book is about, is how to approach your work in a rarefied way and in a way that not many people are doing. What I had written down as my absolute favorite quote from this book was he said, the two core abilities just described depend on your ability to perform deep work, which is professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive abilities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. If you haven't mastered this foundational skill, you'll struggle to learn hard things or produce at an elite level. You can't learn super difficult things and you can't produce at an elite level unless you learn how to focus. Okay. That's the whole point of this book is showing you the benefits that come and then teaching you the skills of how to actually sit and be focused. And if you can do that, again, like you look like a freaking god amongst men, because the studies nowadays are just insane. It's like the average attention span is like 7 seconds or something like that. Like it's unbelievable the lack of ability to focus that people have. And again, because of this information age and this technology age that we live in, right? The best way that you can make a living is either learning something that's insanely difficult, right? And that is difficult in a way that a computer can't replicate, right? Or to learn to do something at an incredibly elite level. And those are kind of your two only options with the way that work is going. All the menial work, all the just easy replicatable tasks, right? They're all going to be taken by computers. They're all going to be taken by AI, right? You have to, if you're going to secure your work as a human, you have to level it up. And the way that you level it up is either in the difficulty or in the quality and quantity that you can produce. And Deep Work is the only way to do that. So this book is literally on the required reading list. Like, I don't have this list yet, but the 100 books that everybody has to read, just period, like you don't get a pass on it. This is one of them. This book is just Nothing has changed my work more than this book. So all the hype about this one was actually worthwhile. The next book that Cal released was called Digital Minimalism. And this one is kind of the how-to of the how-to, right? So deep work was the how do you actually do the deep work. Digital minimalism is how do you build a life that enables you to do the deep work, right? So my favorite quote from this book was he said, digital minimalism is a philosophy of technology use in which you focus your online time on a small number of carefully selected and optimized activities that strongly support things you value and then happily miss out on everything else. One of the biggest problems with trying to do deep work is the distractions that we have. One of the reasons we have so many distractions is because we just blindly accept and start utilizing any new technological thing that comes along. So the philosophy of this book is just this thing that sounds so simple and that we should all know, right? But it's that you don't have to use every new thing that comes along, right? Whatever the hype new social media thing is, you don't have to be on it. Whatever the newest technology thing is, when the Apple Watch comes out, it's like you don't have to get one of those. No one is requiring you to get one of these things. What's happening is you're not making a conscious decision and you're just going along with the flow and you're going along with, the next shiny thing. And you're like, ooh, what's this? This looks fun. And then you end up inundating yourself with all these extra things that don't actually add value to the most valuable things in your life. And so again, this digital minimalism is this idea of looking at your life, looking at the things that you're bringing into it and saying, okay, do these support the most important things that I'm doing? If so, I'm going to happily do them. And if not, then I'm going to happily miss out on them. Right? And so again, it's kind of like the how-to of the how-to. You've got deep work telling you how to actually do the deep work. And then you've got digital minimalism telling you, how do I start to shape my technology use in life as a whole to enable this kind of a lifestyle? Really, really love this one. It was a very, very good, just overarching view of what does intentional technology usage look like in life. Next up was A World Without Email. And at the time that I read this book, and even kind of since then, I have been in a weird work situation where I'm not really in a normal job, right? Basically, everything I've ever done is not really a normal job in that sense. And so this one didn't hit me as hard in the sense of like, oh, yes, that's everything about my life. But I did still find it super fascinating with his discussion about the hive, what he calls the hive mind. And it's this idea that we've all bought into that somehow being ultra connected to each other and able to bounce things off everybody every 5 seconds, like that this is where all the magic happens. And the reality is that that's just where all the distraction happens, right? It's just like we think we're being so much more productive, but the reality is a lot of what we're doing is just talking about being productive instead of actually being productive. And so this was very obvious to me at the kind of the most real job that I had. I was a sysadmin at Cabela's, and this was very much a thing then. There was so much that I'm like, everybody's just talking about the work that we're gonna do or the work that we have done, maybe, but like, no one's actually just doing the work. Like, we're way more focused on talking about all the work that we're going to do than actually just doing the work. And so my favorite quote from this one was he said, "A better strategy than shifting others' expectations about your work is to consistently deliver what you promise instead of consistently explaining how you're working." And that just hit me, even though, again, this doesn't really apply to me. It goes back to that thing of the so good that they can't ignore you. So I'm like, I don't care how it looks like. I don't care how it looks like how I'm working. I just care, do I get my stuff done? I just want you to care, do I get my stuff done? Stop bothering with all this, and let's just actually get some stuff done. So this one is one that, again, if you're in a more normal job, would probably hit a lot harder than it did for me. And it was good, but again, for me, just personally, it just wasn't one of my favorites. All right. And then finally, we have Slow Productivity. This is Cal's latest book. And just chef's kiss. So good. So good. So good. Favorite quote from this was he said, "This is what ultimately matters. Where you end up, not the speed at which you get there or the number of people you impress with your jittery busyness along the way." And this, again, just continues to build on these ideas that he shared from So Good You Can't Ignore You to deep work to digital minimalism and on. And it's just the idea of who cares how it looks? Care about what it produces, So the three kind of pillars of this book are do fewer things, work at a human pace, and obsess over quality. And again, the whole idea here is how do you build not just a work day, which is deep work, like how do you do this thing in a day-to-day sense, and not just digital minimalism, which is like how do you deal with this in the technological aspect of your life. This is really looking at how do you look at your whole entire life as a whole, and the story that your life is telling and the story that you're writing with your life. How do you look at that and bring this idea of I don't care as much what it looks like, I care what the outcome of it is and what it actually produces. Right. And one of my favorite stories, I don't remember who the person was in this book, but it was this guy who's like, he needed to write this article. And for 2 weeks, he would go out to this park and he would lay on the picnic table underneath this tree and just stare up at the tree. And he'd just stare at the branches for like hours, like 2 or 3 hours at a time. And he'd just stare up there. And then after a couple hours, he would be done. And that was the end of his work for the day. And then he just went home. Right. And the whole point was he did this for like 2 weeks. And in that time, all he was doing was just letting his mind work through it and just letting his mind see all the connections and just sitting there trying to figure out how am I going to put all the pieces of this story together? Because I need to write, I think it was an article. He's like, I need to bring all these disparate pieces together and I don't know what the common thread is through all of them. And so he just laid there thinking, right? But from the outside, it's like, what a lazy freaking bum. He's just over here laying on the picnic table in the park for 2 weeks, like doing nothing. And the reality is like that was when all the work was actually happening, right? And so it's just this bigger picture view of your life as a whole, of who cares what it looks like, care about what's actually happening. Whether it looks like you're working or not, are you actually getting the results? Are you actually taking that focused time? Because again, like for this guy, being out in the fresh air and seeing the patterns of the leaves in the trees just put his mind in a patterny view. And like, how does this connect to that? And how does this? And he knew that he was doing the work that he needed to do in order to get the outcome that he wanted to get. And he was fine with other people not understanding it, right? And that's the whole purpose of this book is you burn out when you build your life upon other people's expectations, right? Because a lot of the most important stuff doesn't look like the most important stuff to other people. When you're doing the real actual work, a lot of the times it's very, very, very misunderstood by the outside world just looking in. And it looks like you're just screwing around. It looks like you're just laying on a picnic table looking up at the trees all day, and you're like, no, I was out there working. And people are like, yeah, sure you were, sure, right? And if you build your life upon that and you build your life constantly trying to prove to the world that you're doing something, you're just going to burn out. Like it's guaranteed. You're going to burn out. You cannot sustain that. Let the actual work that you produce be the proof of the fact that you are working, not you're convincing them of you're working during the whole process of while you're working, right? So slow productivity, just absolute, chef's kiss. So good, so good, so good. Okay, so that's every book Cal Newport's ever written. That's all 8 of them. If you are new to him, where should you start? You should start with deep work. 100%. If you only read one of his books, you should read Deep Work because it is the foundation of the rest of his philosophy, right? And so if you read this and you love it, then go and grab So Good They Can Ignore You, and then go grab Digital Minimalism, and then go grab Slow Productivity and build all these things atop each other. But if you're just going to read one, if you're brand new to him and you've never read it, Deep Work is where you absolutely have to start. It's the most bang for the buck. And you could spend your whole life just implementing what you learn from this particular book, okay? So if you're new, grab this one. There's a link in the description for this book, for all these books. Those are affiliate links. So if you like this video, if you want to support the channel, buying those through those really helps. And yeah, just absolutely love this book. That is the one to get. All of his how-to student ones, again, man, if you're a student and you want to, go for them. I don't really care. Everything from So Good They Can't Ignore You on is all worth having in your home library. They're really excellent books. I'm working on purchasing all of them. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read Cal Newport, what your favorite book of his is and why. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.